Okay, sorry to interrupt this. I'm in the midst of God Creates the Light Emanating Heavenly Bodies. I had to move. Some homeless guy came back and sat right across from me in the patio. He's got the whole park, how many acres, thousands of acres, and he doesn't like hearing my voice. So he says, you have to stop talking, and threatened me. And then the grass weed eater guy comes around, so let's relocate. The important thing is the message, not beating up a homeless guy. Anyway, on the first day, God created light. Then on the fourth day, he created light emanating bodies. The phrase, let there be lights. Notice lights, plural, literally. In the Hebrew, mayor, light givers. This is different from Genesis 1:3. So look back up at the text here that we're looking at. Genesis 1:14-19. Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament, the expanse of the heavens, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament, the expanse of the heavens, to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament, expanse of the heavens, to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So God creates the light emanating bodies. And on the first day, God created light. Then on the fourth day, he created light emanating bodies. The light was there without the emanating bodies, in other words. So Dr. Carl Ball says, the fourth day witnessed the establishment of the sun and moon in their functions with respect to the earth. Now we have a little baby crying and having a temper tantrum. Boy, the devil's active today. Since the sun now provides all the energy received by the earth for its geological processes, this event also has profound geological implications. Undoubtedly, there were innumerable other creative and developmental processes taking place during the 6 days as the entire earth was being fitted as a wonderfully harmonious dominion for man to subdue. Take a look at it now, even today. Henry Morris states, on the first day he had said, let there be light, Hebrew or. On the fourth day he said, let there be lights, plural, or light givers, mayor, Hebrew. Intrinsic light first, then generators of light later, is both the logical and the biblical order of things. The purpose of the light and light givers was to divide light from darkness. And Morris says, the chief purpose of both the light of the first 3 days and the light givers of all later days was to divide the light from the darkness. And this can only mean that the two regimes were essentially identical. The duration of the days and nights was the same in each case, and the directions of light emanation on the earth from space must have been the same in each case. In other words, light rays were impinging on the earth as it rotated on its axis during the first 3 days of essentially the same intensities and directions as those which would later emanate from the heavenly bodies to be placed on the fourth day. So, from the first day, light arrived without coming from the sun, moon, and stars, which were not created yet. Later, the light emanating bodies were created to mark the seasons, days, and years. So light was coming onto the earth during the day, but not from the sun, and during the night, not from the moon and stars, for they had not yet been created. The light came from God. If such a concept sounds strange, let it be remembered that it is as easy for God to create waves of light energy as to create generators to produce such waves. There was no need for such generators except to serve the additional function after man's creation of marking signs and seasons, days and years. This phenomena will again occur in the eternity future. So man had a visual location of where the light came from when he was created. Before that, before he was created, the light still arrived on the planet, and it was every 24 hours with an evening and a morning. Yet there were no light emanating bodies at that time, because that's the designer, the great artist, the great creator, God. Compare Isaiah 60:19-20. No longer will you have the sun for light by day, nor for brightness will the moon give you light, but you will have the Lord for an everlasting light, and your God for your glory. Your sun will set no more, neither will your moon wane, for you have You will have the Lord for an everlasting light, and the days of your mourning will be finished. So, the universe was created fully grown. It did not evolve. That's what so far, when we have plant life, it's created fully grown. As noted earlier, the universe was created full grown from the beginning. God did not require millions of years to develop it into its intended usable form. The purpose of heavenly bodies was to give light upon the earth, so this is what they did, right from the beginning. Some have objected to this concept on the basis of evolutionary changes supposedly taking place in the stars. The fact is, however, no one has ever observed such changes taking place. As long as men have been observing the stars, they have always looked as they do now, allowing, of course, for the changes in orientation due to the Earth's rotation, orbital revolution, and axial wobble. The existence of novas and supernovas and theories of stellar and galactic evolution do not refute the concept of the recent creation of a mature universe. Henry Morris says, the only possible exception of any consequence to this statement might be the novas or supernovas that are occasionally observed in the heavens when stars apparently heat up or explode. Some of these have been observed in galaxies supposedly hundreds of thousands of light years from the Earth. The argument is therefore that the stellar event producing the nova or supernova must have taken place the corresponding number of hundreds of thousands of years ago. This may constitute a minor problem, but there are several possible answers. The tremendous stellar distances commonly cited are obtained only on the basis of a number of very esoteric and questionable assumptions. Geometric methods for measuring such astronomical distances can reach only to about 330 light years, so any greater distances are uncertain, to say the least. Furthermore, there is no assurance of the uniformity of the speed of light at such tremendous distances. There exist respectable models of relativity and space curvature, for example, which yield light motion such that light would reach the Earth even from infinite distances in only a few years. I'm going to touch upon gravitational time dilation as well, which is a better explanation, because if the Earth is in the center of the universe, gravitational force will be maximized, and therefore time will be minimized. So things that occur in the Earth in a day may take as far out in the universe as you might be, relatively speaking, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. If you're on the outskirts of the universe, it might take 5 billion years. In any case, any uncertainty as to the exact reconciliation of these distant novas with the recent creation of the universe cannot offset the clear biblical testimony to such recent creation. So, here's the Revised and Expanded Answers book by Don Batten. Some stars are millions of light years away. Such a light year is the distance traveled by light in 1 year. Does this mean that the universe is very old? Despite all the biblical and scientific evidence for a young Earth universe, this has long been a problem. However, any scientific understanding of origins will always have opportunities for research problems that need to be resolved. You can never have complete knowledge, and so there will always be things to learn. One explanation used in the past was rather complex, involving light traveling along Riemann surfaces as an abstract mathematical form of space. Apart from being hard to understand, it appears that such an explanation is not valid, since it would mean that we should see duplicates of everything. See how far down we go before we get to gravitational time dilation. Oh, here it is. Okay. We're going to get there soon. Okay. Created light. This is one explanation. Was light created to appear on the Earth and didn't allow it for travels like a movie? Perhaps the most commonly used explanation is that God created light on its way, so that Adam could see the stars immediately without having to wait years for the light from even the closest ones to reach the Earth. While we should not limit the power of God, this has some rather immense difficulties. Yes. It would mean that whenever we look at the behavior of a very distant object, what we see happening never happened at all. For instance, say we see an object a million light years away, which appears to be rotating, That is, the light we receive in our telescope carries this information, recording this behavior. However, according to this explanation, the light we are now receiving did not come from the star, but was created en route, so to speak. And this would mean that for a 10,000-year-old universe, that anything we see happening beyond about 10,000 years away is actually part of a gigantic picture show of things that have not actually happened, showing us objects which we may not even exist. To explain this problem further, consider an exploding star, supernova, at, say, an accurately measured 100,000 light years away. Remember, we are using this explanation in a 10,000-year-old universe. As the astronomer on Earth watches this exploding star, he is not just receiving a beam of light. If that were all, then it would be no problem at all to say, well, then God just could have created a whole chain of light photons, light particles already on their way to tell you what hasn't happened yet, but you've got an advance notice. However, what the astronomer receives is also a particular, very specific pattern of variation within the light, showing him or her the changes that one would expect to accompany such an explosion, a predictable sequence of events such including neutrinos, visible light, X-rays, and gamma rays. The light carries information recording an apparently real event. The astronomer is perfectly justified in interpreting this message as representing an actual reality, that there really was such an object which exploded according to the laws of physics, brightened, emitted X-rays, dimmed, and so on, all in accord with those same physical laws. Everything he sees is consistent with this, including the spectral patterns in the light from the star giving us a chemical signature of the elements contained in it. Yet the light created en route explanation means that this recorded message of events transmitted through space had to be contained within the light beam for the moment of its creation, or planted into the light beam at a later date without ever having originated from that distant point. If it had started from the star, assuming that there really was such a star, it would still be 90,000 light years away from Earth. To create such a detailed series of signals in light beams reaching the Earth signals, which seems to have come from a series of real events, but in fact did not, has no conceivable purpose. Worse, it is like saying that God created fossils and rocks to fool us, or even test our faith, and that they don't represent anything real, a real animal or plant that lived and died in the past. This would be a strange deception. Well, let's get to a better scientific explanation. Did light always travel at the same speed? Well, first we have different speeds of light. An obvious solution would be a higher speed of light in the past, allowing the light to cover the same distance more quickly. This seemed at first glance a too convenient ad hoc explanation. Then some years ago, Australian Barry Setterfield raised the possibility to a high profile by showing that there seemed to be a decreasing trend in the historical observations of the speed of light over the past 300 years or so. Setterfield and his later co-author Trevor Norman produced so much evidence in favor of this theory. They believed that it would have affected radiometric dating results and even have caused the redshifting of light from distant galaxies, although this idea was later overturned and other modifications were also made. Much debate is raged to and fro among equally capable people within creationist circles about whether the statistical evidence really supports light speed of light decay or not. The biggest difficulty, however, is with certain physical consequences of the theory. If the speed of light has declined the way Setterfield proposed, these consequences should be discernible in the light from distant galaxies, but they are apparently not. In short, none of the theory's defenders have been able to answer all the questions raised. All right. Deep breath. A new creationist cosmology. Far more plausible. Nevertheless, the seed decay theory stimulated much thinking about the issues. Creationist physicist Dr. Russell Humphreys says that he spent a year on and off trying to get the declining sea theory to work, but without success. However, in the process, he was inspired to develop a new creationist cosmology, which appears to solve the problem of the apparent conflict with the Bible's clear, authoritative teaching of a recent creation. This new cosmology is proposed as a creationist alternative to the Big Bang theory. It passed peer review by qualifying reviewers for the 1994 Pittsburgh International Conference on Creationism. Young Earth creationists have been cautious about the model, which is not surprising with such an apparently radical departure from orthodoxy. But Humphreys has addressed the problems raised. Believers in an old universe and the Big Bang theory have vigorously opposed the new cosmology and claim to have found flaws in it. However, Humphreys has been able to defend his model as well as develop it further. The debate will no doubt continue. The sort of development in which one creationist theory, sea decay, is overtaken by another, is a healthy aspect of science. The basic biblical framework is non-negotiable as opposed to the changing